Welcome to Trending Update USA. I am Stefan, and today we're asking a question that goes far beyond one headline. What does it really take for a young superstar to win a Grand Slam in today's tennis world? And are expectations helping or hurting that journey? Recently, readers of Tennis Head shared their predictions about whether Coco Gauff will win a Grand Slam title in 2026. On the surface, it sounds like a simple fan poll, a bit of engagement, a snapshot of public opinion. But if we look deeper, it reveals something much bigger about modern sports culture, about pressure, belief, and how we judge greatness in real time. Let's briefly set the stage. Coco Gauff is already one of the most recognizable names in tennis. She has achieved milestones that many players only dream of, and she did it at an incredibly young age. She's been called the future of the sport for years now. So when fans are asked whether she will win another Grand Slam in a specific year like 2026, it's not just a prediction, it's a reflection of expectations that have been building since she first stepped onto the global stage. Now here's where things get interesting. Why do we feel the need to put timelines on greatness? Think about that for a moment. Tennis history is full of players who developed at different speeds. Some peaked early, others took years to find their rhythm. But in today's world, especially with social media and 24/7 coverage, we don't just want success, we want it scheduled. We want to know when it will happen, how often, and whether a player is on track. In Gauff's case, the conversation isn't just about ability. Very few people doubt her talent. The real question is about consistency, mental strength, and navigating a system that is more demanding than ever before. Winning a Grand Slam is not just about playing good tennis for 2 weeks. It's about managing expectations for months, sometimes years, leading up to that moment. Every match becomes part of a larger narrative. Every loss is analyzed, replayed, and often exaggerated. And this is where fan predictions, like those from Tennis Head readers, can have a subtle but powerful impact. When thousands of people vote on whether a player will succeed, it creates a kind of collective pressure. Even if the athlete never sees the poll directly, the conversation spreads. It shows up in headlines, in interviews, in social media discussions. It becomes part of the environment that the player has to live in. So the question isn't just, will Coco Gauff win a Grand Slam in 2026? The deeper question is, how does carrying that expectation affect her journey? Let's talk about mental pressure for a moment. Professional tennis is one of the most mentally demanding sports in the world. There's no team to hide behind during a match. No substitutions. No timeouts to fully reset. It's just the player, their thoughts, and the opponent across the net. Now add global attention to that equation. Gauff has been in the spotlight since she was a teenager. Every performance is measured against not only her past but also against the legacy people expect her to build. That kind of constant comparison can be both motivating and exhausting. Some players thrive under that pressure. Others struggle with it. And most experience both at different times. What makes Gauff's situation unique is the era she's competing in. This is not just the era of traditional media. This is the era of instant reactions, viral clips, and non-stop commentary. After every match, there are thousands of opinions online, some supportive, some critical, many uninformed. Social media has changed the relationship between athletes and the public. On one hand, it allows players to connect directly with fans. They can share their thoughts, their personality, their story. This can be empowering. On the other hand, it removes the barrier that once protected athletes from constant judgment. Criticism is no longer filtered. It's immediate, personal, and often overwhelming. For someone like Gauff, who is not only an athlete but also a public figure with a strong voice, this creates an additional layer of complexity. She's not just managing her game. She's managing her image, her message, and her mental space. And this brings us back to the idea of predictions. When fans say, "Yes, she will win a Grand Slam in 2026," it sounds supportive. It sounds like belief. But belief can sometimes feel like pressure when it comes with a deadline. What happens if she doesn't win one that year? Does that mean she failed? Of course not. But in the world of public perception, narratives can shift quickly. A player can go from future champion to underperforming in a matter of months, even if their actual performance hasn't declined significantly. This is one of the biggest challenges in modern sports, separating long-term growth from short-term expectations. Tennis careers are not linear. There are ups and downs, injuries, changes in coaching, shifts in confidence. A single season does not define a player's legacy, but in the moment, it can feel like it does. Now let's consider the competitive landscape. Women's tennis right now is incredibly deep. There are multiple players capable of winning major titles. Styles are evolving. Physicality is increasing. The margin for error is smaller than ever. So when we ask whether Gauff will win a Grand Slam in 2026, we're not just evaluating her. We're also considering the level of competition, the unpredictability of the sport, and the many variables that go into winning a major. It's not a guarantee for anyone. And maybe that's what makes tennis so compelling. There's uncertainty. There's drama. There's the constant possibility of surprise. But for the players, that uncertainty can feel very different. It can feel like pressure to prove something over and over again. Let's shift perspective for a moment. Instead of asking whether Gauff will win a Grand Slam in a specific year, what if we asked a different question? What kind of player is she becoming? Because that's where the real story is. Gauff has shown resilience. She has adapted her game. She has handled both success and disappointment in the public eye. These are not small achievements. These are the building blocks of a long and meaningful career. Winning a Grand Slam is a milestone. An important one, yes. But it's not the only measure of success. And this is something that fans, media, and even analysts sometimes forget. We focus so much on titles that we overlook growth. We celebrate victories but often ignore the process that leads to them. In Gauff's case, the process is still unfolding. She is still learning, still evolving, still figuring out how to balance expectations with personal goals. And that brings us to the role of media. Media coverage has a powerful influence on how athletes are perceived. It shapes narratives, highlights certain stories, and sometimes simplifies complex journeys into easy headlines. A poll like the one from Tennis Head is not inherently negative. It's part of sports culture. It engages fans. It sparks discussion. But it also contributes to a larger narrative that can feel overwhelming for players. That's why it's important to approach these conversations with perspective. Instead of treating predictions as definitive judgments, we can see them as reflections of excitement and curiosity. Fans are not just predicting outcomes. They are expressing hope, belief, and interest in a player's journey. And that's a positive thing, as long as we remember that it's only one part of the story. Now let's talk about privacy. In the past, athletes had more separation between their professional and personal lives. Today, that line is much thinner. Everything is visible. Everything is shared. For a young player like Gauff, growing up in this environment means learning how to protect her mental space while still engaging with the world. That's not easy. It requires maturity, support, and sometimes difficult choices about what to share and what to keep private. And this is something we, as viewers, often overlook. We see the matches. We see the results. But we don't always see the emotional effort behind maintaining focus in such a public environment. So when we discuss whether she will win a Grand Slam in 2026, we should also acknowledge everything that goes into preparing for that possibility. It's not just training sessions and match strategies. It's mental resilience. It's handling criticism. It's staying grounded in the middle of global attention. And that brings us to the bigger picture. Why does this topic matter beyond tennis? Because it reflects how we think about success in general. We often set timelines for ourselves and for others. We measure progress against expectations. We compare journeys that are completely different. And in doing so, we sometimes lose sight of what growth really looks like. Coco Gauff's career is not just a sports story. It's a reminder that success is not always predictable, and that potential cannot be confined to a single year. Maybe she will win a Grand Slam in 2026. Maybe she won't. But either way, that does not define her value as a player or as a person. What matters is the direction she's moving in, the resilience she's building, and the way she continues to evolve in a demanding and ever-changing environment. So as fans, perhaps the most meaningful thing we can do is shift our perspective. Instead of asking, "When will she win?" we can ask, "How is she growing?" Because in the long run, that's what shapes champions. Thank you for watching Trending Update USA. I am Stefan, and I'll see you in the next one.